So, picture this. I'm standing at my sister Madison's engagement party, tucked away near the bar at the Riverside Ballroom, nursing a glass of Pinot Noir like it's the only friend I've got in the room. 200 guests, champagne flowing everywhere, and Madison, she's been showing off that engagement ring for the past hour like she's unveiling the Hope Diamond at a museum gala. 2 carats, platinum setting, 3 months of her fiance's salary. And the proposal story? I swear I've heard her tell it at least 15 times tonight, each version somehow more dramatic than the last. My parents are absolutely glowing. Every single retelling, they're right there, asking questions about the jeweler, the cut, the clarity, like they've suddenly become certified gemologists. Meanwhile, I'm over here offering polite congratulations when someone happens to glance my way, essentially invisible. And honestly, I'd gotten used to it. Then Uncle Richard walked in. He came through the doors apologizing for his flight delay, and I felt something shift in the air. Now, Richard isn't just my father's younger brother. He's a venture capitalist who made his fortune backing tech startups back in the late 90s. More importantly, and this is what really matters, he's the only family member who's bothered to stay connected with me over the past 8 years, even though he lives 3,000 miles away in San Francisco. He made his way through the crowd toward our little family cluster, hugged Madison, congratulated her fiancé, did all the expected things. Then he turned to me. "Elena," he said, pulling me into a warm embrace. "God, it's good to see you." He stepped back and studied my face for a moment, really looked at me the way nobody else in that room ever did. "You look incredible. How's life in that $1.5 million house you purchased? Is the neighborhood everything you hoped?" The conversation around us didn't just pause, it died completely. Madison's hand, the one she'd been using to display that ring, froze mid-gesture. My mother's champagne flute stopped halfway to her lips. My father's face went pale, like someone had pulled a plug and drained all the color out of him. "Richard," my father whispered, his voice tight and confused. "What house?" I took a slow sip of my wine, let the moment breathe. 8 years. 8 years of being overlooked, dismissed, treated like the family afterthought while Madison's every achievement got a standing ovation. And now, finally, the truth was about to come out. "The house on Sterling Heights," Richard said casually, accepting a champagne flute from a passing server like he hadn't just dropped a bomb. "The one Elena bought back in 2016. Gorgeous craftsman style, mountain views that are absolutely spectacular. I stayed there last time I was in town." Madison found her voice first, and it came out shrill. "Elena doesn't own a house. She rents that little apartment near the university." "I rented that apartment," I corrected calmly, "for about 2 years during my PhD program. Then I bought the house on Sterling Heights. That was 8 years ago." My father's champagne flute tilted dangerously in his grip. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about the 5-bedroom craftsman I purchased for $1.2 million in June of 2016, I said, keeping my voice even. "The one that's now valued at approximately $1.5 million, according to recent market comparables." That number, $1.5 million, seemed to reverberate through our little family cluster like a shockwave. My mother's hand flew to her throat. My father looked like he'd been struck by lightning. Madison's perfectly practiced smile crumbled into something I'd never seen on her face before. That's impossible," my mother breathed. "Where would you get over $1 million?" "I put down $240,000 and financed the rest, though I paid off the mortgage about 6 years ago." Richard nodded approvingly. "Smart move. Elena's always been brilliant with money. That signing bonus from Helix Pharmaceuticals, she put the entire amount toward the mortgage principal, paid off $960,000 in just 2 years." "Signing bonus?" My father's voice had gone faint now. "What signing bonus?" "From when I started at Helix, they offered me $180,000 as a signing bonus to leave my postdoc position. I accepted and used it all to pay down the mortgage." Madison's voice came out strangled. You got $180,000 signing bonus? That's fairly standard for senior positions in pharmaceutical research. My current annual compensation is $375,000, including bonuses and stock options. The silence that followed was absolute. Somewhere behind me, I heard a champagne flute slip from someone's fingers and shatter against the marble floor. Several guests turned to look at the commotion. My mother looked like she might actually faint. $375,000? My father repeated it mechanically, like he was trying to process a foreign language. A year? Base salary is $280,000. Annual performance bonuses average around $60,000, and my stock options vested this year at approximately $35,000.
Richard smiled, clearly enjoying himself. Elena's being modest. Those stock options I mentioned, she's sitting on another $420,000 in unvested equity, plus the patent royalties. My mother's whisper was barely audible. Patent royalties? I hold 11 patents in oncology drug delivery systems, I said. They generate approximately $95,000 annually in licensing fees. I watched Madison's hand, the one with that 2-carat ring, drop slowly to her side. Suddenly, that diamond looked very, very small. My parents stood frozen, trying to reconcile the daughter standing in front of them with whatever version they'd been carrying around in their heads for the past decade. I don't understand, my mother said, her voice cracking. You're a pharmaceutical researcher. How can you possibly afford all this? I'm the director of oncology research at Helix Pharmaceuticals, I corrected gently. I oversee a department of 47 researchers. We're currently in phase 3 trials for a drug that could revolutionize pancreatic cancer treatment. Richard pulled out his phone and started scrolling. Actually, Elena's work was featured in Nature Medicine just last month. The article called her research groundbreaking and potentially Nobel-worthy. Nobel Prize? My father's voice had gone hoarse. It's early to talk about that, I said, uncomfortable with the speculation. But the research is promising. If the phase 3 trials succeed, we could save thousands of lives annually. Madison's voice turned sharp, defensive. Why didn't you tell us about any of this? And there it was, the question I'd been waiting years to answer. I did tell you, multiple times. You didn't listen. That's not true, my father protested. Richard set down his phone. Actually, it is true. I have the emails Elena sent me about it. He looked at me. You want me to share? I nodded slowly. November 2016, he recited from memory. Told Mom and Dad about the house. Dad said she was being financially irresponsible. Mom asked if she was sure she could handle the maintenance. My mother opened her mouth to protest, but Richard continued. April 2018. Mentioned the mortgage payoff at Easter dinner. They asked if that meant she was unemployed. We didn't say that, my mother said weakly. You did, I confirmed. You assumed that paying off a mortgage meant I'd lost my job, not that I'd been financially successful enough to eliminate the debt. Richard continued as if the tension wasn't thick enough to cut with a knife. Elena, have you made a decision about the lake house investment? That property was stunning. What lake house? My father demanded. There's a luxury property available on Lake Serenity, Richard explained. 6 bedrooms, private dock, 3 acres of land. Elena's considering purchasing it as a vacation rental property. Why would Elena buy a vacation rental? Madison asked, her voice thin and reedy. For income diversification, Richard said matter-of-factly. She already owns 4 rental properties in addition to her primary residence. This would be her 6th property overall. The revelation hit like a shockwave. My mother actually swayed on her feet, and my father had to grab her elbow to steady her. Madison looked like someone had slapped her across the face. 4 rental properties, my mother whispered.
Small single-family homes in emerging neighborhoods, I said. I buy them below market value, update them myself, and rent them to young professionals. Average cash flow of about $1,800 per unit after all expenses. That's $7,200 a month, my father calculated automatically, the accountant in him unable to stay quiet. That's over $86,000 a year. In rental income alone, Richard added, plus appreciation. Those properties have increased in value by an average of 42% since Elena purchased them. Her total real estate equity across all properties is approximately $2.1 million. The numbers kept landing like artillery shells, one after another. Madison's ring hand hung forgotten at her side. My parents stood frozen, trying desperately to process a version of their daughter that didn't match anything they thought they knew. $2 million in real estate? My father said slowly, like he was testing whether the words would break. That's just the real estate. Elena's total net worth is closer to $3.2 million when you include her retirement accounts, investment portfolio, stock options, and liquid assets. Madison's voice came out as barely a whisper. $3 million? $3.2 million, I corrected quietly. Though these are estimates, market fluctuations could change the exact figure. My mother's champagne flute slipped from her fingers and shattered on the floor, joining the earlier casualty. This time, she didn't even notice the glass breaking at her feet. "You're a multi-millionaire." "On paper," I said. "Most of it's invested or tied up in real estate equity." Just then, Dr. Catherine Wells, a colleague of Richard's, approached our group with a warm smile. "Elena, I didn't know you'd be here. Congratulations on the FDA breakthrough designation. That's incredible news." "Thank you, Catherine," I said. "We're very excited about the potential." "FDA breakthrough?" My father's voice had gone faint again. "The FDA granted our pancreatic cancer drug breakthrough therapy designation about 3 weeks ago," I explained. "It fast-tracks the approval process. If everything goes well, we could have approval within 18 months instead of the usual 4 years." Catherine beamed at my parents. "Elena's work is going to save countless lives. She's absolutely brilliant." She turned back to me. "Are you coming to the conference in Geneva next month?" "I'll be presenting our Phase 3 preliminary data," I confirmed. "Presenting at a conference in Geneva?" My mother looked dazed. "The International Oncology Research Symposium," I said. "I'm giving the keynote address on novel drug delivery mechanisms. It's a fairly significant honor in the field." Richard actually scoffed. "Fairly significant? Elena's the youngest keynote speaker in the symposium's 40-year history. It's a massive deal." Madison's voice turned bitter now, defensive. "So you're just famous? Is that what this is? You're some kind of celebrity scientist?" "I'm not famous. I'm respected in my field. There's an important difference." "Your research has been cited over 4,000 times, Catherine pointed out, looking at Madison with barely concealed disapproval. "You've published 37 peer-reviewed papers. You've revolutionized oncology drug delivery systems. That's more than respect. That's a recognition of genuine brilliance." The praise made me uncomfortable, but I appreciated Catherine having my back. My parents looked completely shell-shocked. Madison looked like she was going to be sick. "I need some air," Madison said suddenly, pushing through the crowd toward the balcony. Her fiancé hesitated, looking between Madison and our family group, clearly unsure what he'd just witnessed. Then he followed her outside. My mother started to go after them, but my father held her back. "Let them go, Patricia," he said quietly. "We need to talk to Elena." "What's there to talk about?" I asked. "Uncle Richard mentioned my house. You didn't know I had one, now you do. That's really the whole conversation." "It's not," my mother said, tears streaming down her face now. "How can you have achieved all of this and we didn't know? How is that possible?" "Because you never asked," I said simply. "Because every conversation about my life got redirected to Madison. Because you assumed that since I wasn't posting on social media or seeking attention, I must not have anything worth sharing." Richard nodded.
I've been watching it for years. Every phone call, every family gathering. It's the Madison show. Madison's job, Madison's boyfriend, Madison's engagement. Elena could literally cure cancer, and you'd interrupt to ask if Madison wanted dessert. That's not fair, my father said. Isn't it? Richard challenged. When was the last time you asked Elena about her research, her home, her life? When was the last time you treated her like she might have something worth celebrating? The silence was damning. My father looked away. My mother sobbed openly, her makeup running in dark streaks down her cheeks. I can tell you exactly when, I said quietly. You asked about my research 6 years ago at Thanksgiving. I started explaining my work on nanoparticle drug delivery, and you interrupted after about 2 minutes to ask Madison about her new apartment. You haven't asked since. The specificity of that memory, the fact that I remembered the exact moment they'd stopped pretending to care, seemed to break something in my mother. I'm sorry, she whispered. Elena, I'm so sorry. For what exactly? I asked. For not listening? For not caring? For spending 8 years treating me like I was less important than Madison? We love you both equally, my father insisted. Do you? I asked. Can you tell me what company I work for? What my job title is? What disease I research? Where I live? Can you tell me anything about my actual life? The silence stretched on and on. My father's jaw worked, but no words came out. My mother's tears fell onto her expensive dress, leaving dark spots on the silk. Helix Pharmaceuticals, Richard provided quietly. Director of Oncology Research, Pancreatic Cancer, 2847 Sterling Heights Drive. Elena oversees breakthrough drug development that could save thousands of lives annually. We should have known all that, my mother said, her voice breaking. Yes, I agreed. You should have. My father's voice came out rough, almost angry. What do you want from us, Elena? And that's when I realized something that surprised even me. Nothing, I said, and I meant it. I used to want you to be proud of me. I used to want you to be interested in my work, to see me as someone worth paying attention to, but I stopped wanting that about 4 years ago, when I finally accepted it wasn't going to happen. It can happen now, my mother pleaded, reaching toward me. We can do better. We want to know everything. Can you, though? Or do you just want access to your millionaire daughter now? Do you actually want to know me? Or do you just want to brag about me now that you can't pretend I'm the disappointing child anymore? The accusation landed hard. My mother physically flinched. My father looked stricken, like I'd struck him. We never thought you were disappointing, my father said. No, I agreed. You just thought I was less impressive than Madison, less successful, less worthy of your time and attention. I paused, letting that sink in. You were wrong. You were catastrophically wrong, but you didn't know that because you never bothered to look. Richard placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. Elena, maybe we should... I'm leaving, I said, cutting him off gently. This is Madison's night. I shouldn't have come. Elena, please, my mother said, reaching for me again. I stepped back, out of her reach. Enjoy the party. Celebrate Madison's engagement. It's what you're good at. I walked toward the exit, my heels clicking against the marble floor with each step. Behind me, I heard my mother call my name, but I didn't turn around. I kept walking. Richard caught up with me in the lobby, slightly out of breath. You okay? I considered the question honestly. I think so. That was harder than I expected, though. You were perfect, he said. Calm, dignified, truthful. Everything they needed to hear, even if they didn't want to hear it. They're going to call, I said. Tonight, tomorrow. They're going to want to fix this. Maybe, Richard agreed, but you don't owe them an easy reconciliation. You've spent 8 years trying to be seen. If they want a relationship now, they need to earn it. What if they can't? I asked.
What if they're not capable of seeing me as anything other than Madison's less interesting sister? Then you'll be fine, he said firmly. You have an incredible career, financial security, meaningful work that literally saves lives. You have people who actually appreciate you. He paused. You don't need parents who only value you when they learn your net worth. He was right. I knew he was right, but it still ached somewhere deep in my chest. Thank you, I said, hugging him tightly, for seeing me, for being proud of me. Always, he said. You're the most accomplished person in this family, Elena. Don't ever let their blindness make you doubt that. I drove home to Sterling Heights, to my 5-bedroom craftsman with its mountain views and custom finishes, to the life I'd built with my own brilliance, my own dedication, my own relentless work. Inside, everything was exactly as I'd left it. The home office, where I reviewed research data and wrote papers that were advancing medical science. The library filled with medical journals and oncology textbooks. The guest suite where Uncle Richard stayed during his visits. The master suite with its spa bathroom and walk-in closet. Every single room represented a choice I'd made, a goal I'd achieved, a dream I'd realized. Not for my parents' approval, not for recognition or praise, just because this was the life I wanted. And I'd gone out and built it. My phone started ringing. Mom's face lit up the screen. I let it go to voicemail. Then my father called. Voicemail again. A text from Madison. You couldn't let me have one night? You had to make it about you? I set the phone down and walked through my house, room by room. The kitchen, where I'd hosted dinner parties my parents had never attended. The backyard with its garden, where I grew vegetables I donated to the local food bank. The basement I'd converted into a home gym and meditation space. The anger I'd expected to feel, it didn't come. What was there instead was just clarity, clean, cold, liberating. I'd built something extraordinary. I'd achieved financial independence, professional recognition, and meaningful impact. I was revolutionizing cancer treatment. I was on track for achievements my parents couldn't even comprehend. And I'd done it all without their knowledge, without their support, without their approval. Which meant I didn't need those things to succeed. I never had. Tomorrow there would be more calls, more attempts at reconciliation, more demands that I somehow make them feel better about their failures as parents. There would be awkward conversations and probably tears and definitely guilt trips. But tonight I stood in my $1.5 million house, surrounded by 8 years of quiet achievement, and let myself feel the full weight of what I'd accomplished. Without them, despite them, in spite of them. And you know what? That was more than enough. Now hold on. Before you scroll away, let me ask you something. Did you feel that? That moment where your chest got tight and you thought, this could be me. That's why I tell these stories. Most people will watch this and do nothing. They'll feel something real, then forget it by tomorrow. But you're still here. That tells me something about you. So here's what I need. Hit subscribe. Not for me, for the next story you didn't know you needed to hear. Tap that like button. One tap might push this video to someone lying awake tonight, someone who needs these words more than you know. And drop a comment, a real one. Tell me what this stirred up in you. I read every single one. One more thing. You know someone who needs to hear this. Right now, someone came to mind. Send it to them. Don't explain, just send it. The right story at the right moment, it changes everything. New stories every week. Raw, real, no sugarcoating. Subscribe now. I'll see you in the next one.